Okay, so this is the Team Losi XXT CR Graphite Plus, kind of a long name. As with a lot of things in my collection, I actually picked this up some time ago, but never really got to working on it. I was motivated recently to work on it because I want to get this ready for the RC10 Talk vintage race that's going to be later in October this month. So my original plan for that race for the Stadium Truck class was to run my RC10T, which has a hydro drive in it, which I think would be good for that surface in Insanity RC in New Jersey, because that's more of a conventional dirt surface where you're running whole shots and double Ds and sprinters and those kinds of tires. But the RC10T is not a great truck for jumping, even though it handles nicely. This should be much better. My T2 that I use at the Vintage Off-Road Nationals, I want to sort of keep that for Vonats and try not to beat it up too much in other races. So even more reason to try this out. And the Kyosho trucks I have, I need to do a little bit more work on them, and also I don't have these kinds of tires mounted on rims yet for those, so I figured, again, let's just run the double XT. But first I have to set it up and paint the body and everything. So, starting with the body, this is from Penguin RC, and it fits fine. The only thing to point out is for the wing, you don't actually get a wing, you get a Lexan plate, and it's intentionally cut to be oversized, and it's just a plate. So you have to cut it to shape and cut it to size, all by hand. To get the length, let's say correct as it were, I just referenced an RC10T rear wing and just tried to cut it to the same height there. This also comes with the protective film on both sides, so make sure you remove that film from at least one side before you start painting it. I made that mistake and wasted quite a bit of paint. Okay, that's it for the body. As far as the chassis itself, fairly straightforward. I just ported all my electronics from my RC10T over to this, including a hydro drive. I put that on as well. I'll get to that in a minute. Really, this truck was already built pretty well. The previous owner didn't destroy this thing, so I just had to put oil in the shocks and re-grease the CVDs and just check the diff, and that was about it. So for the front, I just did two things. I have a Moto Obscura aluminum front bulkhead here and a Factory Works A&L reinforcement plate for the front brace. Now, as luck would have it, Dragon Punch RC is reproducing these front braces now, these upper deck pieces, which is great because before then they were really hard to find because they're kind of a fragile part. They tend to break. That's why A&L made this reinforcement plate. So even if you get a Dragon Punch part for this, you may still want to run this carbon fiber a reinforcement plate just to make sure that you don't end up breaking this in the middle of a race, right? So, okay, front's all set. The only remaining weak point on the front is probably this body mount. I've heard cases of this being another sort of part that tends to break. This is certainly not as sturdy as like the RC10T front body mounts, but if you don't drive like an idiot, I'm sure this will be fine. Going to the middle here, I know there's somebody who makes a set of pieces you can attach to the middle of the chassis to mount LiPo batteries and basically move them forward and backward in certain specific increments. I didn't pick that up. I just figured I'd plop in a LiPo in the stock tray with the stock cover here. The vertical spacing is just enough to fit a thinner LiPo. This is a 3 amp hour shorty LiPo. If you try to go to a conventional LiPo that's thicker, like a 4.2 amp hour one, obviously it won't fit here, so you need something different like that other brace, that aftermarket brace. But this should be enough for my needs, and there's plenty of space to move it forward and back to tune steering and everything else. So, okay, great. And then on the rear, what did I do here? Really just two things. Threw the hydro drive in, and I may need to add fluid to this, but when I tried it out on the driveway the other day, it seemed fine, even though this had leaked a little bit over time as it was in storage with the RC10T, but apparently it hasn't leaked enough to make it useless. So I think for now I won't refill it. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Again, CVDs, just clean them and re-grease them. no worries there. Everything was in really nice condition already. I just put this aluminum brace here for the rear gearbox to keep that from breaking. Apparently, the way this works, the way I figure this works is you have this piece of plastic that extends from the rear gearbox over the bulkhead. And what can happen is if you crash and flip over, you have a force as the car is moving forward that pushes back on the tower. And that could cause the bulkhead to flex backward, which would cause the front lip here on the gearbox to flex up and potentially snap. So to prevent that, you put this brace on here, which does two things. This part that wraps around toward the bulkhead, this will keep the bulkhead from pushing back. But to the extent that it might, you're also distributing that load over a greater area here. So this will make the truck much more reliable as well. So I don't anticipate anything really breaking here, which is good. And I really look forward to driving this truck. I'm quite excited about it. Now, why did this fall off? It's because I took the nut off because I want to talk about something here with the wheels. So if you want to run a double XT, part of the problem is the double XT rims are really hard to find, and nobody is currently reproducing double XT rims. J Composites makes RC10T rims, which is great. The 10T rear wheels fit double XT perfectly fine. The offset is correct. Everything is totally fine. But the front wheels, an RC10T front wheel does, although it will fit on this axle because you use the same bearing type, the offset is different. So if you mount it, this piece here pushes the wheel out, and the wheel itself has an offset, and that's going to make the front too wide. So to correct for that, you have to do a few things. There's a few things people have done. What I figured I would try was to put a 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch axle on the inside of the wheel so I could mount the wheel further in. To do that, you have to file this down ever so slightly so the 1/4 inch bearing slots on there. But even if you do that, with that change in offset, as it were, the front is still a little bit too wide, just a bit. The other problem is these little sort of flaps here that are on the RC10T front rims, they will catch on the back of the arm. On this side here of the arm, at full steering lock, the inside wheel is going to catch on the arm there. So you have to get a Dremel and Dremel out all this material here to make sure you have clearance. But even once you do that, what ends up happening is this part of the bearing housing here is going to rub up against the inside of that arm. So then you still have to shim this out a little bit to keep that bearing housing from rubbing the arm. So as it is, even with the wheel all the way in, it's still a little too wide, and then you have to push it out just a little bit to get clearance there. It's going to be too wide. If you're okay with that, fine. But if you want the correct width, the RC10T front rims are not the way to go. What other people have done apparently is there's the Duratrax Evader front wheel axle doesn't have this offset, but otherwise it mounts fine on this. So you could throw that on there and use an RC10T front rim. Again, it's not going to be the exact perfect width, and you still have to deal with the arm issue, which means any one of these front wheels you have, you got to do all this Dremel work on every single rim. It's a pain in the butt. So this is the only wheel I did it to. I don't plan on doing this on any other 10T front rims. To save yourself the trouble, you might as well just, run a 10T front rim and just accept the wider offset. And the front's just going to be a little bit too wide. Okay, fine. Just deal with it. Otherwise, it'd be really nice, J Concepts, if you're listening, or anyone else, for someone to reproduce, especially front wheels for the Losi Double XT, because they don't have the ribbing here on the inside of the rim. So it's not going to catch on the arm, right? It's a fundamentally different rim. So hopefully in the future, someone will make those. Lately, it's been JC Racing Products or J Concepts that's been reproducing vintage rims. So if either of you guys are listening, please get on that. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to mention about this? No, I don't think so. I look forward to driving it. It's a really cool truck. I've kind of come around to using, Losi stuff for some of my vintage racing over my Team Associated stuff. That's kind of a long story. And those of you who follow the channel for a while kind of know what's going on there. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's it for now.